If you want to know about title company, this is the place that you have to be. If you're a buyer or if you're selling your home. Ken, just let me know what is a really title company does.
So we are there to help coordinate between the buyers, the sellers, the agents, all the terms of the contract to ensure that you can get to closing.
So you are the third party between the buyers and the sellers.
Exactly.
And help them in the process.
Exactly. We're going to coordinate all the documentation. We're going to do the closing. We're going to make sure that everything goes smoothly for you.
There's a lot of people asking about the escrow account.
We're handling escrow as well. We're handling the funds that come in. But the title side of it is that we're going to go in and do your title search and get your title documents, to get all the legal documents from your lender and ensure that everything is nice and tidy for you when you come to closing day.
I'm a real estate agent and you work for the title company. We suppose that everybody knows the terminology that we use.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people when I say, you have to send the EMD. What is that?
Yeah, your earnest money deposit.
So what are you going to do with that money?
So that is going to go into an account and that will be held until closing day. And then once we get a better idea of how everything is going to balance, then that will decide if that just gets credit right into the closing or if those funds end up going back to the buyer at the end of the closing.
What is the process? How do I get a title company? Can I shop around?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we encourage people to do is to shop around, make sure that you're getting the best rates and that you're working with the best company. And we like to pride ourselves on being that best company.
That's good to know. You'd be able to negotiate a fee or not?
We have a standard set of fees, but if something were to come up or maybe if they got a quote from another title company, then we can certainly work with them to make sure that you're getting the best deal and being able to work with the title company that you want to work with.
There's a lot of people, they say, I want to save some money, so I don't want title insurance. What do you recommend it?
My recommendation is always to get title insurance. It's something that's going to protect you and your assets at the end of the day against any kind of defects or claims that come up after closing. And these cover all title defects that were pre-existing. So it's not going to be things that come up after closing per se.
So what's going to happen is, let's say right now we have a claim.
Okay.
Because it happens to me the other day that I have already sold a house. 4 months later, there was a claim. What it really is a claim, people understand what it really is.
So if somebody's putting a claim against the property, they're basically stating they have some sort of right to that property, or in a case where you have maybe like a mechanic's lien or something, maybe they did some work and they're owed some sort of financial compensation for what was done to the property. So they'll put a lien against the property in that case. And when those issues come up, if you have that title insurance, we're able to go back and address those issues for you so that you don't have to worry about that. You're able to enjoy the property and be able to sell it without any other kind of obligations or claims against it.
How is the process? How do you do everything step by step when you get the ratified contract?
So obviously, once you get ratified, you're going to send that contract over to us. We're going to open the file. We're going to send out those instructions to get that earnest money deposit in so that we can have that on file. And then from there, what we're going to do is coordinate between the sellers, the buyers, the agents, get all the confirmations, details of the transaction, any kind of documents that we may need. So essentially, like if we were to get into, say somebody's inherited a property, wills, death certificates, things like that could be stuff that is required at that time. So we'll coordinate and make sure we get all that documentation so that when closing day comes, we have everything that's needed.
That's important. It's an obligation to have a title company to work for as a settlement?
You can work with an attorney as well, but most people in Virginia work with title companies at this point.
Peace of mind.
Yep, a little bit of peace of mind. It's all about knowing who you're working with and knowing that at the end of the day, they're going to do a good job for you and that they're going to make sure everything is taken care of so that you don't have to worry about it later.
Do you have any story that happens to you?
There's one thing that does come to mind, though, about some stuff that's come up recently, and that we've seen a lot of land fraud. So this is a big concern, right?
I heard that.
So if you're selling land or if you're purchasing land, it's really important to go with a title company or an attorney that can make sure that everything is being done properly and that everyone who is associated with the sale of that land is actually able or has the right to sell that property, because we've seen instances where people are being frauded, live out in Ohio, but they own property here, and these people are being strategic with how they do it.
I heard about that, yeah. With the title, it's
insane. They'll go to the courthouse and file the legitimate sale, but when you get down into it and you really research the person and get the identifications that we need, that's when a lot of times it comes to light. You'll see people that have the same picture on a driver's license and a passport, and anybody that's done them knows you don't do those at the same time.
Yeah.
So for it to be the exact same image typically tells you there's some sort of fraudulent activity going on there. So that's something I would say be very cautious about right now. When it comes to land sales, just make sure that all the parties that are associated with the sale of the property are legitimately the owners of that property.
The other thing, everything is electronic now. Our life is changing, so wire transfer. And it wasn't happening to me, but it was really so sad. I have a friend of mine, had 2 or 4 days before the closing, he wire transferred $145,000.
Oh my goodness.
Later, he found out that was a scam.
We've seen it recently. I think we've only had one occurrence in our offices where it's come up so far, and we caught it because the gentleman noticed the driver's license and the passport were the exact same identification. But I've heard stories in you where they thought they bought the property and come to find out they didn't legally purchase that property. And then we have to go back and address those issues and make sure that everything gets taken care of. Fortunately, it hasn't happened with us. We've been taking the steps to ensure that doesn't happen with any of our clients. But like I said, there's cases out there right now where somebody goes out and does a sale outside of using an attorney or a title company, and then you're taking a risk.
And the problem is 24 hours, you won't be able to trace that money.
We're gone at that point.
Yeah. So what do you guys do? Like a cashier check? Sometimes it's wait. People are working, so it's really tough to go to a bank and wait 2 hours or 3 hours to get a cashier check. You are making it easier for people, but at the same time, it's kind of risky.
Yeah.
But what do you guys do in order to make sure that doesn't happen to you guys?
So obviously we have a few different ways that we can accept funds, obviously a cashier's check being one of those, but we have a couple other options. For one, if you're getting your earnest money deposit in, we have an app called Zocam or something. It's very efficient and easy to use. If you take and upload checks to your mobile banking account, it's essentially the same process. So you're gonna go in, you're gonna register, you're gonna select at the office that you're working with, you're gonna put in all the property details, your agent's information, that way it can send them a notice once that's been received. And then essentially you're just gonna go in and take a picture of the front and the back of the check, and you're good to go. And it'll send confirmations to you and to the title company that that wire has been sent and that the funds are received.
That make your life easier.
A lot easier.
Yes.
And then of course, obviously you can do a regular wire transfer as well if you wanted to go into your bank and just have them assist you with doing it that way. And those instructions we send secure. Those come through a secure portal so that you know that those are legitimate. If you ever have somebody that emails you and says that there's any sort of change to those, you'll always want to contact us and your agent first to let them know, because the last thing we want you to do is go in and get caught in a fraud where you're sending money to somebody that's not legitimate.
That's one of the things that I made sure that my clients know, step by step, how they can do the wire transfer. And I always talk to my client, talk to the title company, get the people, this is the name, you got the contact, you can talk to them and whatever question you have. The closing day, what do they have to bring, the buyers and the seller?
Typically, when you come in for closing, there's a few things that you're going to want to bring. One of those being a government-issued license. So you're either going to have a driver's license. If you're military, you'll have a military ID, or there's one other form, I can't think of it right offhand, but it has to be some sort of government-issued ID with your photograph. Some lenders do require a second identification type, and a lot of times that doesn't necessarily have to be like a photo ID, so it could be like a social security card or something along those lines. But you're also going to need to bring, if you have any kind of wiring instructions, if there's going to be funds that are coming back to you, it's important to bring those with you or avoid a check. As well as if, let's say that somebody's doing like a power of attorney where somebody is signing on their behalf, then we need an original copy of that power of attorney when you come in.
And everybody that signed the title have to be that day, because what happens to me, a young couple, they got a settlement date and everything was cool. The wife wasn't in the loan, but she was on the title. She decided that day to fly to Mexico. Nobody knew. So we were at the closing and I asked him, "What is your wife?" "She's in Mexico." I said, "What?"
Oh no.
But anyway, we have to write it a day and just things happen.
Stuff comes up, things that you don't maybe expect, and we're flexible. We try to work with people and make sure that y'all are getting the service that you need.
And it happens because it's a lack of knowledge. Ken, do you have anything that you want to share? My channel is all about helping people to understand the process.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what's most important nowadays is just being able to communicate with people. You know, there's a lot of people that are harder to get a hold of. I'm somebody that's always available, even outside of normal office hours. So if you had questions, if you had a client that had maybe a specific need, then I'll work with you all and be flexible to make sure that we can address any of those things, that are concerns that come up.
In the state of Virginia, who choose the title company?
Your buyer chooses. Now, the seller can choose that if they want to have an attorney represent them, to have to go that route. And typically we have the Mason law firm that we work with. So if we have sellers that maybe they're not comfortable working with the same company, they're more than welcome to reach out and we can assist them with that as well.
You have to have a really good communication between all the parts, because buying a house is a process, man. But I would say to you, it's an easy process. I know they have to sign, if you're a buyer, how many pages do you have to sign that day?
A lot. If you just have a first, it's like probably 80 some pages. Now, granted, we have a lot that are going hybrid now. So you're able to do some of those documents electronically beforehand, but you're easily, in most cases, signing about 80 documents in one day in a sitting. So it's a lot, but we try to go through it and really help the clients understand what it is that they're signing at the day that we're closing. That way there's a little bit more of a comfort level for them.
You're doing a great job explaining everybody.
We appreciate it.
I really love 3 days before they closing. They know estimated.
Exactly. They're closing disclosure. They're going to get that. They're going to get our Alta statement as well to let them know, like you said, what amount needs to be wired in before closing. People are always welcome to wire a little bit extra if they want, just in case there's any adjustments or maybe something gets pushed back a day or something like that. Then they can do that as well, and then we can just refund whatever the difference is after the closing.
Can I tell you how much did you refund one of my clients?
What's that? How much?
$1.95.
Really? But hey, they had that comfort of knowing, like, we paid that little bit of extra. If something does come up, it's taken care of. We don't have to send a separate wire that day of closing.
That was a check. But let me ask you what you're going to see in that disclosure.
So typically you're going to see the financial aspects of the closing. So you'll see your sales price, your earnest money deposit will be shown on there. And then we're typically going to go through like closing costs. So things like maybe taxes that are going to have to be paid. Seller side, if there's commissions or admin fees, things like that, those are going to be on there. As well as on the buyer side, you're going to get into things like the escrow account and setting that up. And again, any kind of recordation taxes and things like that that they may have, loan figures, title fees, anything that would be considered a closing cost.
The escrow account, it doesn't belong to anybody until we have everything set up.
Once we've balanced figures between us, the lender, we've sent those documents over to the agent and the clients to look at to make sure that everything lines up and that everybody's in agreement, then at that point we can record and disperse.
And the last part, you buy a house, but the house has some issue and they gonna give a credit, a company gonna come and fix that. Sometime before the closing, sometime after the closing. Yep. How is the process?
So let's say in the case where maybe there's some work that's being done afterwards, we can always hold funds in escrow until those repairs have been completed. And then at that point, what we do is we have the parties just send in some sort of a notice stating that everything has been completed and we're okay to go ahead and disperse the funds. And then at that point, we can either disperse it to whether it be the buyer or seller to pay the contractor or directly to the contractor. So just whatever kind of agreement y'all come to.
Real estate and title company, we are very close. We need each other. So how do you see the market right now?
The market's strong. I think the biggest hurdle that we have at the moment is we just don't have as much inventory as we would like.
Yes.
There's a lot of buyers out there. So people that are looking to sell or have that thought of, should I sell this property? Know that it's a great time to sell right now because we have so many buyers, but not enough homes.
In the last 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks after we have the interest rate hike, buyers decide, oh, this is not the time, 7%, because there's a lot of people are worried about the 7%. It's just like I told all my clients, you are not married that 7% for your whole life. I ask, are you renting? Because if you are renting, you're paying 100% interest rate and go to the trash.
Because you're not getting that equity in a home.
No.
So by purchasing your own home, you're building up your equity in it, which is an investment at the end of the day. And I don't think a lot of people really think about that and realize that.
No,
and honestly, we talk about the rates, but before COVID, if you think about it, rates were in the 5s and 6s. So this is nothing that's out of the norm per se. And I think if you talk to any lender or anybody else that's in the industry, the expectation is that these rates are going to come down over time.
Yeah, I heard that. I was reading it yesterday.
The expectation is these rates are going to come down over time. So if you find a home that you love right now, why not get in there, make the investment, start accruing equity in that property. And as these rates come down, there's always the opportunity to refinance later down the road at that lower rate.
Or at least you find out all the information that you need to be prepared, because you need to have some safe money, and because you're gonna have out-of-pocket expenses, so you have to be ready.
It's like we talk about like renters and all, but a lot of them think they can't buy, but they don't realize that they're actually closer than they thought. They just need to take those steps to get there within maybe a year's time frame.
Right now, with the situation that we have, even to rent a house is even harder than to buy a house.
A lot of
The
places
credit
are-
score they're asking for.
They want a high credit score, or I've seen recently where a lot of companies are starting to require like a triple deposit, which is crazy if you think about it. You're thinking basically 3 months of payments that you're paying up front. That's a lot of money, and that is essentially as much as a down payment on a property.
That's a lot of requirement right now as a renter.
Exactly.
But the only problem, it's going to be a problem for a long time, is because the lack of inventory. We don't have enough inventory. And more people have to understand that it's just thinking about the mortgage is really more like a saving obligation.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get equity.
Exactly.
2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to get your money back, and even more than that.
Exactly. Especially the way that homes have appreciated over the past 5 to 6 years. You're guaranteed you're going to make your money back.
Hey guys, I don't want to take you more time, help you to understand a little bit more about title company. This channel is all about living, enjoying this area of Fredericksburg, Virginia. If you are new, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. But remember to click the subscribe button and hit the bell, because you get that notification right away down below. So you're going to see his information. So if you have any question, just feel free to call him.
Absolutely. That's why I'm there.
All right. Goodbye, guys.